CFB, Wildcat Media, Factory Times, not here, Web, Wildcat Esports, and Res Life Rep.
Here.
All right, moving on to the approval minutes of September 9th, 2021. Is there any discussion on these minutes? Senator DeLuca?
Nope. I'd like to motion to add bill names next to their numbers on the agenda.
Do I have a second? Senator Baugh? Any discussion on this motion? Seeing no discussion, does anyone oppose unanimous consent on the motion? Seeing no opposition, this motion passes 4-0-0. Back to discussion of the approval minutes. Senator DeLuca?
Also, in the minutes it says bill 2021-56 and when it was actually 59, so I'd like to motion to replace 2021-56 with 2021-59.
Do I have a second? Senator Pellegrino? Any discussion on this motion? Seeing no further discussion, does anyone oppose unanimous consent on the approval of this motion? Seeing no opposition, this motion passes 4-0-0. Back to approval of minutes. Wildcat Media.
Hello. There it is. Under Bill 2021-64, after Wildcat Media motion, I motion to add second : Senator DeLuca. I'll yield.
Do I have a second on that motion? Senator DeLuca, any discussion on this motion? Seeing no discussion, does anyone oppose unanimous consent? Seeing no opposition, this motion passes 4-0-0. Back to approval of minutes. Seeing no further discussion, we'll move into voting on the minutes. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. The minutes pass 4-0-0 for September 9th, 2021. Moving on, we have no announcements, no guest speaker. Then we'll go on to executive reports. Our president.
Hello? All right. So, hey everyone, there's been an increase of students not following the mask guidance. So I'd like to give a reminder that masks must be worn inside at all times. And if you see anyone without a mask, just kindly remind them to put it on or put it above their noses. Later today, I have a meeting with the provost, and tomorrow I have a meeting with Dr. Montgomery and the vice president of student affairs to talk about COVID and other project initiatives. And lastly, the SUNY Poly Presidential Search Committee has identified a group of candidates to interview on campus in the form of forums. These forums will be accessible to all faculty, administrators, staff, students, and alumni. If you'd like to attend and have more information, just please look up SUNY Poly Presidential Search in your web browser. Thank you.
All right, moving on, our vice president. Hello, everyone. I have extended the grace period an additional week. This will give more students the opportunity to run if they have been waiting to get settled into the semester before choosing to do so. All the election dates have been moved back a week as well. If you plan to run, please announce your candidates during open forum by either this meeting or during next week's. Moving along, the Factory Times OrgHead interest forms will be going live this Monday. In case you didn't know what the Factory Times does, I have a short blurb to explain. The Factory Times is SUNY Poly's one and only student publication. The magazine combines modern, artful design with bold and uncensored student journalism. Each year, the Factory Times welcomes growth by accepting student submissions and giving students the opportunity to gain valuable professional experience in design and communications. The grace period for interest forms will be 2 weeks long, followed by a week of interviews by the executive board. Finally, I would like to encourage senators to vote independently of one another I've noticed a few senators will look around prior to follow the crowd prior to voting. You represent the students in this role. I expect you to vote for what you believe to be best for them. Thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your week. Moving on, our treasurer.
Hello, hello. I hope everybody has a wonderful week. I met with all services and we discussed the mini projects. The project is still in works and there's no certainty that it will start up, and I am working on updating the policies for it. As the election will be extended a week, I will be working on amending the financial policy, and if any of you read through the financial policy and caught something that needs to be fixed, please talk to me so we can work on it.
Thank you. Our chief of staff.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Good afternoon, everybody. So busy week. Tomorrow, I'll be meeting with Jan George, Indiana, and President Fish in regards to Professional Development Day. We're working on that. I also will be meeting with Andrea Lagata tomorrow about some initiatives that she would like to partner on. And then lastly, this week, Jen George, John Reel, and myself, we met with Michelle McRae from Century Industries in regards to our proposed soundstage project. So I plan to meet with President Fish and Treasurer Wu just about the logistics of that to figure out how we're going to move forward with that. And then the last thing I just want to bring up, Wednesday the 15th was the start of Hispanic Heritage Month. And each week I plan to just give like an update about what the month means and things like that. So today I'll just share why we celebrate that month. So each year Americans observe National Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th to October 15th by celebrating the histories, cultures, and contributions of American citizens whose ancestors come from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central and South America. So this month, just take some time to appreciate the culture and celebrate the culture. And that's everything for my report. Thank you.
All right. Seeing as we have no directors currently, we'll move on to College Council rep.
Hey everyone. Hope everyone's week has been good so far. Some updates I have for you all is I finally been able to settle in with my schedule. And with that, I was able to schedule some meetings that will be beneficial to my position, so especially with our advisor, Jen George. I also would like to mention that this morning I attended the annual foundation board meeting. That went well, and I was able to explain some of the insights the SUNY Poly had over the course of the weeks we were here. And I will also be meeting with Lori Hartman later today. And yeah, that's all for me. Hope you all have a great one.
Our ResLife rep.
Good afternoon. A few reminders from ResLife office. For all packages that you are having shipped, please refer to the email on September 13th from the ResLife account for the new address that you should have packages shipped to. And coffee houses will be starting back up next Wednesday, September 22nd, starting from 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. in the ResLife office. All residential students are welcome to come.
Our advisor.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be in person this week. I've been joining you virtually, and it's just nice to see everyone in one room and back together again. Excited to be working on Professional Development Day with Giovanni. I've had meetings with all of the execs so far, and looking forward to a really great year ahead with some clear goals and some mission that we're working on. A reminder that next weekend is Wildcat Weekend, so mark your calendars for Friday night and Saturday. There's some fun things happening. And here's to the rest of a good week.
Thank you. Seeing as the election has not concluded yet and there are no committees, we will skip on down to org reports. Webb.
Hey everyone. Tonight we're hosting hypnotist Nadine Manuel here in the Student Center NPR at 8:30 p.m. Her show is very interactive, so if anybody would like to be hypnotized, be sure to come out. It's a lot of fun. Of course, this evening there's bowling from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. at AMF Panorama. Make sure you go. We're still working out the kinks in the system, but everybody should have a fun time there. And then tomorrow we're hosting a games night. There's going to be catering and board games down here in the NPR. Then upstairs is going to be the glow-in-the-dark game room that we always do. There's going to be a pool tournament, $100 to Amazon for the first place winner, 50 to the second, and then 25 to the third place. There's also going to be glow-in-the-dark ping pong and a bunch of games upstairs, so don't miss out.
CFB?
All right, we had 2 more club activations this week, drama and game design, and now we're in the process of reviving 3D printing club and tabletop club. So if you know anybody interested in either club, please have them send an email to the cfb@sunypoly.edu so we can get those clubs up and running. And we still have 2 open positions, so if you're interested in working with CFB, please send an email to the CFB email to set up an interview. We are hosting our first extra funding event on September 20th at 6 p.m. here in the Student Center NPR. It's going to be a Jackbox game night. Thank you.
Wildcat Media?
Hello. That was too loud, sorry. Wildcat Media executive interest forms have closed, and I'm finishing interviews today. We have a couple of executives to swear in today for the positions that we have finished interviewing for. Wildcat Media, for those that don't know, we do all the audio video assistance within student government, and we assist other organizations outside of student government. We also have a radio, TV, and other content creation. Whatever your interest, we would love to have you, and we could find a place for you within our volunteers, from advertising, radio hosting, TV recording, or even budgeting. If anyone would like to hear more, please see me after the meeting or email us at wildcatmedia@sunypoly.edu. A little note, now that we're back in person, our live events coordinator and volunteers would love to have our speakers at meetings know a little bit about the microphones. Please speak at a normal volume while keeping the microphone 3 to 5 inches from your mouth. Try not to bring it out here. Don't bring it way up into your mouth. So 3 to 5 inches from your mouth, speak at a normal volume. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving on to Factory Times is not here, so Wildcat Esports.
Hello, everyone. Tryouts are in full swing this week, with Rocket League being tonight at 7 p.m. Tomorrow, we are starting our Overwatch tryouts, with Smash tryouts following this weekend. Thank you to everyone who signed up and participated so far. We cannot wait to see what the rest of this week has in store. Tuesday night, we had a very successful Among Us night. We had a full party of 15 people, and we cannot wait for the next one in October. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
All right, that concludes org reports. Moving on to old business, Bill 2021-67, Senator DeLuca.
Motion to accept Bill number 2021-67, SGU Policies and Procedures Amendment, hard copy agendas, minutes, and legislation.
Do I have a second? Senator Pellegrino?
We, the members of the student government at Utica SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to acquire all agendas, minutes, and legislation for SGU-related meetings to be in virtual format unless special requests are granted. The purpose of this bill is to reduce the use of hard copy paper agendas from all SGU-related meetings. I yield.
Mr. Papagiannis?
Hello, everyone. Did you miss me? So I just want to give some background on this bill. Oh, I'm echoing. Okay. I wish I could be there with you guys, but I do have a meeting in a bit that I have to go to. But so the way it worked a couple years ago was every single agenda was printed and was given to everyone that came to the meeting, and then there was a couple printed for the audience. And
might be. All right, Chief of Staff.
Hi, I have a question for the author. How are you, Mr. Papagiannis? Good to see you. Oh, no, I have a question for him.
Are you going to yield back?
I didn't ask the question yet. I just want to make sure you can hear me. So, Mr. Papagiannis, I have a question. So, in the justification section of the bill, you state that sustainability has become a hot topic. Can you just describe that or explain that a little bit more? It's in the first justification line of your bill. I yield back to Ari.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean, with the new presidency, we have all these new laws, especially with Governor Hochul. I mean, now, I wrote this obviously before Governor Hochul was put in office, but you know, she's saying that 2035 we should have all electric cars. So all these car companies announced that they're moving to electric, and there's all kinds of other sustainability initiatives in that infrastructure bill. There was all kinds of climate change allocation funding for local governments and things like that. So that's what I mean by it being a hot topic.
Senator DeLuca.
Hello, Mr. Papagiannis. I know you were on sustainability before, so I can see your interest in passing this. I have one concern I wanted to get your opinion on before making this, as this is your bill. You limited 5 paper copies to be distributed to members of SGU upon prior request. My concern, that's for section 12.4.0, but then section 12.4.1 says members may request a copy. Are you limiting the number to 5, or would you mind maybe removing that limit but just saying only upon request? I'll yield to Mr. Papagiannis.
1 second, I did hear your question. So the way it looks like it says 5 paper copies to be distributed to members of SGU upon prior request. So I think 12.4.1 is just explaining what that prior request is. Yes, that is what it's doing.
Do you yield?
Oh, yeah.
Senator DeLuca.
Romeo.
Well, Rusty. Would you mind if we remove the 5 paper copies and just leave it per request? Like, what if we, for example, have 6 people that want to request it? Suddenly, there might be a problem, and especially in these times, we probably don't want people sharing. So maybe just per request only? I'll yield to Mr. Papagiannis.
So you're saying to have no limit and to just have them request? That's fine, yeah. I'm fine with that.
Are you going to yield again?
I do yield, Mr. Vice President.
Senator DeLuca.
All right, then I'd like to motion to strike the following from section 12.4.0, 5 paper copies to distribute to members of SGU upon prior request. I yield.
Do I have a second? Senator Pellegrino, any discussion on this motion? Seeing no discussion on this motion, we'll move on to voting on the motion. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This motion passes 4-0-0. Back to discussion of the bill. Wildcat Media.
Seeing that that motion just passed, what would the thoughts be on maybe limiting senators to requesting physical copies to like maybe 5 meetings per semester, just to keep it from a senator requesting actual printed copies like every single meeting and just stacking them all up? Because I think we can agree that there's really not a need for a senator to have printed copies every single meeting. So I'd just like to hear everyone's thoughts. I'll yield.
Senator DeLuca.
this is going to be more personal, but for example, I like pen and paper. I like writing on these bills and agendas. I can understand if we have our policies and procedures, not requesting that because that's basically a tree and a half. But for stuff like this, I'm an analog person, so I like having all of this here available to write on and annotate as will. That's why I mentioned also what if, as before we mentioned, what if somebody doesn't have the equipment, so we were going to limit them to only 5 meetings at that point. That is just my concern with making this standard or a procedure in that way. Also, I know something in duration that it says at the beginning of the semester, so like to motion to replace the duration with this bill would become policy immediately upon passage and ratification. I yield.
Do I have a second on this motion? Senator Baugh, any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, does anyone oppose unanimous consent on the motion? Seeing no opposition, this motion passes 4-0-0. Back to discussion of the bill. Mr. Papagiannis?
So the whole purpose of the intention and the exception in my head for requesting a paper copy is because you don't have access to internet or don't have access to a printer or laptop or something like that. So I don't think that should be limited.
Any further discussion on the bill? Seeing no further discussion, we'll move on to voting on the bill. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This bill passes 4-0-0. Moving on to Bill 2021-59, Senator DeLuca.
Motion to accept Bill number 2021-59, SGU Policies and Procedures Amendment, Poster Policy Amendment.
Do I have a second? Senator Bell.
Purpose of this bill is to require giveaways to be stated on posters. The purpose of this bill is, we, the members of the student government at Utica SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to require giveaways to be stated on posters. The purpose of this bill is to require giveaways and the value of the giveaway to be stated on posters. The purpose of this bill is to amend the poster policy. I yield.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Webb?
This afternoon, I met with John Reel in AUX Services to go over section 23.6.0. And we thought, just to clear up confusion, make it more specific, I would like to motion to change that section to read, any and all posters created by a club or organization under SGU that contain a giveaway are required to state the details of the giveaway on the poster or direct students to the SUNY Poly Government at Utica online platform. These details must include the quantity of each prize being given away and in the form of gift cards explicitly state the monetary value, the way the prizes are distributed, whether by place in a competition or random selection must also be included. I yield.
Do I have a second for this motion? Senator DeLuca, any discussion on this motion? Seeing no discussion, we will move on to voting on the motion. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This motion passes 4-0-0. Back to discussion of the bill. Seeing no further discussion on the bill, we'll move on to voting. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This bill passes 4-0-0. Moving along, Bill 2021-62, Senator DeLuca.
Motion to accept Bill number 2021-62, chronicling the vote.
Do I have a second? Senator Bell.
We, the members of the student government at Utica SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to have senator votes written into meeting minutes. The purpose of this bill is to increase transparency in the SGU Senate meetings. I yield.
Is there any discussion on this bill? All right, seeing no discussion, we'll move on to voting on the bill. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hand. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This bill passes 4-0-0. Moving along to Bill 2021-63, Senator Bell.
Motion to accept Bill number 2021-63.
Do I have a second?
Policy change constitutions update.
Do I have a second? Senator DeLuca.
We, the member of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to update the secretary responsibility.
Do you? Thank you. Any discussion on this bill? Seeing no discussion, we will move on. Oh, Senator DeLuca.
I believe last meeting our Chief of Staff had something on this bill. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'll yield to our Chief of Staff.
I don't remember. I know I did say something. Senator DeLuca, can you help me out here? Do you remember where I was going? I'll yield to Senator DeLuca.
I apologize. I just remember last time we had some back and forth banter about section. Now your memory's jogged. I'll yield to our Chief of Staff again.
Yeah, I think it was in relation to subsection A with the executive meeting minutes, I think. Because it says in subsection A, they shall be responsible for writing minutes for the executive meeting and Senate business meeting. And yeah, so that was my comment on that. Because I don't think that's practice necessarily for the secretary to do that, but I guess I'll yield to the president to see if there's any commentary in that regard. So I yield to President Fish.
Thank you. I know for me, the secretary will not be recording meeting minutes during the executive meetings, as these are confidential. But it's on a need basis if you want to know information. I yield.
Wildcat Media.
After hearing what President Fish said, and that it is something that doesn't necessarily normally happen, but it could happen that they need to, so I'd like to make a motion under subsection A to change it to state, they shall be responsible for writing minutes for the executive meeting if deemed necessary by the SGU president and the Senate business meeting, and the rest of what's there. I'll yield.
Do I have a second? Senator DeLuca. Any discussion on this motion? Senator DeLuca.
The concern with this motion is it didn't add anything to the bill specifically, and also that makes it sound like the secretary has the option of writing the minutes for the Senate meeting as opposed to is required to. So I'd like to request that may we potentially reword this motion. I'll yield.
Wildcat Media.
My motion did not give the option to the secretary, but if deemed necessary by the SGU president.
Our Chief of Staff.
So I definitely can agree where you're coming from on that. I think if that were to be the case, I think that's something that could be said maybe in a conversation. So I guess where I'm going with this is I agree with the motion that you made to make that change, but I also want to recognize what Senator DeLuca said. So, but I would also agree maybe amending the motion just to even just take that out, because I think that's something, because the secretary in the contract, it says they can be delegated any duties by the president if it doesn't interfere academically. So to your point, I think that's how that would be covered, if that makes any sense. I yield back to Wildcat Media.
I'll retract my motion.
We will, one moment. Do I have a second to rescind the motion? Senator DeLuca? We will move on to voting on the retraction. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. The retraction passes 3-0-1. Back to discussion of the bill. Our Chief of Staff.
Can I entertain a motion to strike out the following from subsection A? So just to strike out the executive meeting and. I yield.
Senator DeLuca?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Senator Ba, any discussion on this motion? Seeing no discussion, does anyone oppose unanimous consent in the motion? Seeing no opposition, this motion passes 4-0-0. Back to discussion of the bill. Seeing no further discussion, we will move on to voting. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This bill passes 4-0-0. Moving along to Bill 2021-64, Senator DeLuca.
Motion to accept Bill number 2021-64, policy change or constitution update.
Do I have a second? Senator Pellegrino.
We, the members of the student government at Utica SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to update the Constitution template for the organizations. I yield.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Seeing no discussion, we'll move on to voting. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This bill passes 4-0-0. Moving along to Bill 2021-65, Senator DeLuca.
Motion to accept Bill number 2021-65, policy change, Shanty Rules Amendment.
Do I have a second? Senator Bell?
The purpose of this bill is to, we, the members of student government at Utica SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to allow the SGU Secretary to assign numbers for legislation introduced without a number. I yield.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Our Chief of Staff?
Okay, so this question is directed to both of the authors of the bill. So it says that the Chief of Staff has the power to change numbers for legislation introduced without a number, as well as grammatical errors. So being that the executive board anticipates to have a secretary, do you think it's still necessary for the Chief of Staff to play a role in the legislation, being that that's a primary function of the secretary? I yield to Senator DeLuca.
Thank you, Chief of Staff. The main reason we left the Chief of Staff or Secretary is just to keep with our previous version of the House rules, which allowed for the Chief of Staff or Secretary to make grammatical corrections onto bills. So this is just keeping it consistent. If our Chief of Staff would be interested in potentially changing that, I'll ask them to entertain that motion. We'll yield to our Chief of Staff.
So in the House rules, does it explicitly state Chief of Staff, or is it the prior role of the executive assistant? I yield to Senator DeLuca.
The executive assistant or secretary has the power to change grammatical errors as long as they do not affect the meaning or purpose of the bill. So, I apologize, that is an outdated copy, but this is just keeping with the consistency of allowing the Chief of Staff, which replaced the executive assistant position, to make these changes and say, for example, hopefully this does not happen. We don't have a secretary. There's still somebody who is able to make these modifications and changes. I'll yield.
Our Chief of Staff.
I don't think we should change it, being that that was just more of a question, but, and this is just for discussion's sake, but I wonder if that's something down the line maybe we should think about just modifying, so there isn't, overstepping the boundary and the role of the secretary. I yield to Senator DeLuca.
Seeing as we're straying a little out, say we can probably meet at a later time to discuss said changes, and I'll yield.
Any further discussion on the bill? Our Chief of Staff.
Just following that line of questioning with Senator DeLuca, do any other senators maybe have any input on that? Do we think that we should change it, take the Chief of Staff out of it, keep it in, things like that? I yield to Senator Pellegrino.
I do believe. Wait, it's already on. I do believe that the Chief of Staff should have the power, but the wording that it says, it seems like either or could be sent it. So maybe it could be worded as in the case of there's no secretary, that the Chief of Staff has the power to. I yield.
Any further discussion? Senator Baugh.
I would like to agree with Senator Pellegrino. I think, if I remember well, the reason why we wrote it like this is because we were going through a period where we didn't have a secretary for a really long time. And the Chief of Staff was taking care of that, I believe so, which is why we wrote that in. But I do think your idea, Senator Pellegrino, is a good idea. So we could maybe, if you would like to make a motion to amend that, that would be great. I yield.
Our Chief of Staff.
No, I agree perfectly with both Senator Baugh and Pellegrino. So I wonder, just for the wording, should we just explicitly give the secretary the right to do that and put a sub-bullet in the case of X, Y, and Z, then the Chief of Staff will take that? I yield to Senator DeLuca.
For sake of discussion, we should motion that so we limit discussion to said motion, and I'll encourage our Chief of Staff or our Senator to make said motion. I'll yield.
Any further discussion on the bill? Our Chief of Staff.
Being that Senator DeLuca tasked me with this, I'd like to entertain a motion to amend the method section, the sub-bullet to state the secretary has the power to change numbers for legislation introduced without a number. And then sub-bullet, if I can add a sub-bullet to that, and sorry if I'm doing this so wrong, it's been a long time since I did this. Add a sub-bullet to that to state, should there not be a secretary, the Chief of Staff can assume those duties, period. I yield.
Senator Pellegrino.
So moved.
Do I have a second on the motion? Senator Baugh, any discussion on this motion? Senator DeLuca.
Now that we are in said motion and limiting discussion to it, we can make any grammatical changes as mentioned earlier. I do want to question, maybe instead of adding a sub-bullet to sub-bullet, maybe we should just have a second sentence within this bullet. I'll yield to our Chief of Staff.
Senator DeLuca, I believe that you have motioning power, and I would totally recommend that you use that in this discussion. I yield.
Any further discussion on the motion? Senator DeLuca.
Could I please get a reminder of the exact wording of the motion before I make any changes?
Our Chief of Staff, would you like to answer that?
The motion, I said, the secretary has the power to change numbers for legislation introduced without the number. And then I added in that motion a sub-bullet to state, should the secretary role be vacant, comma, the Chief of Staff should resume or assume the duties mentioned above. I yield to Senator DeLuca.
Probably close enough. Thank you. I'd like to motion to make this sub bullet into a second sentence on the bulletin, on the previous bullet instead. I yield.
Do I have a second on this amendment? Senator Pellegrino, any discussion on the amendment? Senator Ba?
Oh, sorry. Senator DeLuca, I have a question. Is there a specific reason why you'd like it to be in the sentence and not like as the Chief of Staff stated? I yield to Senator DeLuca.
Thank you. It's just a matter of we have so many sub-bullets for sub-bullets in our House rules and just like to keep it more streamlined. And it's more cosmetic than anything. If we don't like this change, we can always vote against it. I yield.
CFB.
I would like to make a motion to table all discussion on this amendment and bill to next week so that we can determine exactly what we want this amendment to say and, have it done without, stretching out the meeting too long. I yield.
Do I have a second? Seeing no second, that motion dies. Back to discussion of the amendment. Wildcat Media.
Call the question.
Do I have a second? Senator DeLuca. We'll move on to voting on the call to question. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hand. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hand. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hand. We'll be moving back to discussion of the motion. One second. We'll now move on to voting on the amendment. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hand. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hand. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hand. Moving back to discussion of the motion. Senator DeLuca. Never mind. Seeing no further discussion on the motion, we will move on to voting. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent on the motion? Seeing no opposition, this motion passes 4-0-0. Back to discussion of the bill. Senator DeLuca.
Seeing as we had some interesting discussion and we probably want to finalize how this will look, I'd like to motion to table this bill for 1 week.
Do I have a second? Senator Pellegrino. Any discussion on tabling? Our Chief of Staff.
I think we have more than enough time to discuss this. I think the purpose of these sessions right here are to debate edits to legislation and amendments and things like that. I'm not saying whether I think tabling is a good idea or a bad idea, but I also think we have a considerable amount of time that we could, make said changes here in this meeting. I yield.
Wildcat Media.
Since there are quite a few people that want to discuss it, quite a few people that want to move on, I'll make a motion to limit discussion on this bill to 125. I yield.
Do I have a second on the motion? Senator DeLuca. Any discussion on this motion? To clarify, it was 125 to limit discussion? Thank you. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent on the motion? Seeing no opposition, that motion passes 4-0-0. Back to discussion of the bill. Back to discussion on the motion to table for 1 week. Seeing no discussion, we'll move on to voting to table for 1 week. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands, and all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This motion does not pass. 0-3-1. Back to discussion of the bill. Our Chief of Staff.
Senator DeLuca, are there any other changes that you think we should make? This really isn't a long bill, so I think we can tie it up fairly quickly. I yield. I just yield in general.
Senator DeLuca.
That motion to table was just because there was some people interested in potentially moving on. At this point in time, I see no changes that would be required. However, if we miss anything, we go just pass more legislation later. That's the purpose of having these meetings, passing legislation, and having discussion on said legislation. I'll yield.
Our president.
I was just curious, the last sub-bullet in miscellaneous, would we want to change that as well? I yield.
Senator DeLuca.
That last sub-bullet in miscellaneous just states what we currently have in the House rules. Changing that serves no purpose whatsoever. I yield.
Wildcat Media.
Point of information, I accidentally clicked off my PDF. Which bill are we on?
2021-65.
Thank you.
Policy Change Shanty Rules Amendment. Back to discussion of the bill. Our Chief of Staff.
I'd like to entertain a call to question on the bill.
Senator DeLuca.
So moved.
Do I have a second on the call to question? Senator Pellegrino. We will move on to voting. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent on a call to question? Seeing no opposition, this call to question passes 4-0-0. We'll move on to voting on the motion, or on the bill. My apologies. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This bill passes 4-0-0. Moving along to Bill 2021-66, Senator Pellegrino.
Motion to accept Bill number 2021-66, Calamity Protocol Restoration.
Do I have a second? Senator Bell.
We, the members of the student government at Utica SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do enact as follows. The purpose of this bill is to fix the emergency/action period.
Do you
I
yield?
yield.
I'll take that as a yes. Moving on to discussion of the bill. Seeing no discussion, we'll move on to voting on the bill. All in favor, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. All against, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. And all who abstain, please raise your hand. You may lower your hands. This bill passes 4-0-0. That concludes old business, and seeing as there's no new business, we'll move into open forum. If you in the crowd would like, there's a mic right there to announce your candidacy. I will let you go first. Don't be shy.
Hello, my name is Chase Viviani, and I'm announcing my candidacy for senator.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan Pellegrino. I'm a sophomore here at SUNY Poly. I'm also a computer science major, and I would like to announce that I'm rerunning for senator this year. So.
Hello, my name is Ava Fees. I'm a freshman this year, and I would like to announce my candidacy for running for senator for this coming semester. I'm really excited to campaign. If anybody has any questions, I'm always available on campus, or you can ask me over my Instagram at Ava Fees.
Does anyone have anything else for open forum? Senator DeLuca?
I recently had a discussion with Sodexo, and we were looking at just seeing what the usage is for Poly Pizza. Want to hear if anybody had opinions of mainly what days of the week do they use Poly Pizza and such. Discussion on that. I yield.
Senator DeLuca, can you repeat that question? I yield.
Senator DeLuca.
What days of the week do people use Pali Pizza? Is that better rephrase?
Thank you, sir.
I yield.
Go ahead.
Good? I got it? All right.
Yeah, you're good.
Hi, everyone. Ooh, that's bad. Hi, everyone. My name is Brendan. I'm with Wildcat Media. Hopefully, we'll be being sworn in the next few minutes. I'm just going to piggyback off of what John said in his report when it comes to the microphones. Just a few, additional things that he didn't mention. Don't touch the microphones. Tapping them damages them. And you damage them, we have to buy new ones. So please don't tap the microphone. Also, they're very directional. If you notice, it's right in front of my mouth. He mentioned the 3 to 5 inch mark. It's a pretty good benchmark. Gives enough space between your mouth and the microphone so you don't sound like you're eating it and you don't sound like you're too far away. Also, on the point of it being directional, the further it gets away from my mouth to the side, you can now see you can't hear me anymore. Same up here, same down here. So if you maintain this general area around the microphone, you'll sound good. Currently, the way it's set up, not to go into too much detail, but all of you go into one channel. All these microphones go into one channel. If I had what I'd like to do, we'd have everyone on their own channel. That way I could more easily fine-tune the way you guys sound, but we don't really have the resources right now to do that, so currently you're all on one channel. That being said, I'm constantly switching back and forth between your volumes and pitches depending on where each and every one of you hold the microphone. So if you could help me out, help these guys out, since we'll be teaching some new guys in the coming weeks. Just maintain that 3 to 5 inches and direct, right into the microphone. That way it's easiest for us to manage all, however many of you there are. All right, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Does anyone have anything else for open forum? Esports?
Thank you. I would like to ask Webb about transportation to events when it comes to the movies.
Webb, would you like to answer?
No, you don't want to. Thank you.
Webb?
No, I hate that question because we always get it. 2 years ago, we had issues with the bus driver we were using. It's very hard to find someone that wants to do it. Usually for movies, it's easier, but it was bowling that was giving us issues because it just goes so late into the evening. We can start looking into it again, but we have to start from scratch since we did take a year off. Right now, the next movie we have planned is in November, so I could start looking into it. We know it's something students want, but it's very difficult, especially if we have to follow COVID guidelines. I yield.
Wildcat Media.
I'll just be Mr. Milovic for this discussion. You guys should do Dear Evan Hansen movie. I yield.
Anything else for open forum? Esports?
I'm not sure if we should have a separate conversation about this, but for Web, I noticed in the calendar there is something that you will want to connect with esports towards the end of the semester. I'm not sure if you want to talk about that now or in a separate conversation.
Webb, that is directed to you, so I'll let you answer.
Thank you. Yes, I've been speaking with Pete about it, Giove. So yeah, we could talk about that later, but John, why? For everyone though, even everyone in the audience, if you have any event ideas, you could always reach out to us. We're always looking for suggestions and things like that. Also involving other clubs and orgs on campus. So it's wildcatevents@sunypoly.edu, or you could DM us at SUNYPolyWeb or myself. Yield.
Our Chief of Staff.
This question is directed to the Wildcat Events Board. If I have a after-hours events proposal, can we still propose that to you? I yield to Mr. Riccardi.
Thank you. Well, 2 years ago, fun fact, the Campus Activities Board and the After Hours Activity Board merged. So we do take after hours activities if that is something you are interested in.
Senator DeLuca.
Seeing as this has become Pick on Web Hour, I'd like to ask, do you have any upcoming events you want to spotlight or anything that might be on the table in development? I yield.
Web, would you like to answer?
No, not really. I can hear it in my ear. Every event is in our report each week, or you could check out sunypoly.edu/engage. I yield.
Our Chief of Staff, please don't grab the mic.
Yes. I apologize. This question is directed towards the events board once more. Oh, sorry. Directional. I'm sorry, Brendan. Trying to be in the. So I remember a few, last semester, the sticker promotional items that your organization had. Do you guys plan on doing those types of things again in the future? I yield to Mr. Riccardi.
By sticker promotional material, do you mean the physical stickers, or do you mean all promotional material in general? I yield back to the Chief of Staff.
Both, actually. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes.
I yield to Mr. Riccardi.
So we have gone through most of our stickers. We do plan on ordering more. We are always giving out promotional materials. Don't want to tell you where they will be, because you should go to all of our events and see if we're handing stuff out. Come on. I yield.
Does anyone have anything else for open forum? Reslife.
I would like to backtrack a little bit to Senator DeLuca's original question about Poly Pizza. I find that residents will go almost any night of the week, although Fridays and Saturdays do seem to be the most popular. I yield to Senator DeLuca.
Thank you for that reply. That has been something we've seen. Just wanted to confirm. We don't want to infer. We'd like to hear students' opinions on that. I'll yield to our Chief of Staff.
This question is mainly for the e-board. So I've noticed on the topic of Poly Pizza, there's a lot of things on the menu that aren't available anymore and things like that. Has there been any students coming to you about those concerns? And also, has the executive board had any conversations with Sodexo on that matter? I yield to the president.
I haven't received anything from students about menu items. I haven't received things about hours and seeing if we can get them extended. We haven't had any conversations yet, but there are plans to getting a routine meeting with them. I yield. I yield back to the Chief of Staff.
I yield to Senator DeLuca.
As the current chair of food committee, I have been meeting almost weekly with Sodexo, just discussing any concerns that I've heard from students. I've also encouraged people to reach out to our email, sgufoodservice@sunypoly.edu. Shameless plug, shameless. And so just checking and seeing, of course, they're still suffering from a staffing shortage. That's one of the reasons we had this discussion. I don't want to get too far of any announcements or plans. We're just trying to see what students like and don't like about Poly Pizza. If there's something you believe should be on their menu, please feel free to speak to me, send an email, or even speak to them directly. They are available to answer questions. Deborah Hansen, the new general manager, is very available. My Chef Talentino, I'm going to be butchering his name, and I apologize in advance to him. So reach out to them, ask to speak to the chef. When he's there, he's usually always free to speak. And also in the Student Center, retail manager Brian, who once again cooked my lunch today. Props to him. So reach out, speak to them. They're looking for feedback in anything in regards good, bad, any suggestions. We're their customers, and they want to serve us. I yield.
Would the audience member like to speak? If esports, thank you, John.
Considering that Poly Pizza is for everybody on campus, would it be possible to create like a Google form to get the whole entire like students' like opinion on the hours or the food, like just so that way we can all give it to Sodexo so they can know? I think it would be great. Senator DeLuca.
Webb?
I was going to suggest something similar. I feel like the best way to collect this data is just to open Poly Pizza for 2 weeks every night and just see when the business is, when the hours they get people going. Because I think the best scenario is it's open 7 days a week, but maybe the hours can differ when they know it's going to be busy. And also it is for, students that live on campus. So if they did a survey, they could just do it in the campus center where most people eat their meals.
Rise Life.
Just back to the change in menu. A lot of those changes were because of supply chain shortages. Most notable, chicken wings. The price of chicken wings has gone up. And then on the topic of hours, I have a close friend named Kevin Zhang who works at Poly Pizza almost every night. So if someone were to reach out to him, he'd be a great resource for asking when the busy hours are and what days most people go to Poly Pizza. I yield.
Our president.
Thank you for your idea on the survey. I'd be more than happy to work with the food committee on that, and we'll definitely do that. Thank you.
Senator DeLuca.
Thank you. My arm's falling asleep. Anyway, a survey was in the works. However, it has to pass said food committee, and there's a bureaucracy with that. So the easiest way to collect some instant information was just to ask at this meeting. The hope was next week to send this information out via community mailer, our social media, like the link tree and such. But this was just a precursory, just more reactionary first day, reach out and get opinions so I can report back what we've heard so far. I'll yield.
Wildcat Media.
Senator DeLuca, has the food committee been meeting? And then my second question is, if the answer is no, how are you getting this information from students? I yield to Senator DeLuca.
Food committee meeting at the moment, no. So if I'm conducting that vote, that will be done via email, which has been done in the past for getting up for passing or approving the poll. And secondary, from students, some of them have been scared of me. Whenever I'm leaving the campus center, I usually try to corral, per se, one or two of them and ask what do they think of the food, how's their day going, reach out, see what do they think of the food. And also, as I said, whenever I see anybody on the deck, so like I said, general manager, I used to say hi, reach out to them, see what they're thinking and what plans they have in mind, so I can see what students will have in mind. And also, I said I do not get ahead of their announcements. We're just at this point getting information that Sodexo may be interested in hearing. I'll yield.
Media.
So looking at our executive reports, there's a lot of open director positions. I realize we are recruiting for those, and I'm just curious to see how is that going. Do we have anybody interested? Because those are kind of, a lot of them are very important, like community outreach, DEI, stuff like that. We really need people to fill those roles, I think. I yield.
President Fish, that was directed to you.
We do have the interest forms out. We have seen increase in interest, so that's pretty exciting, but we're still advertising as well. Thank you.
Esports.
Sorry. I would like to remind everybody that even though we have access to the internet, we have multiple ways of getting to the students. We could physically stand in the campus center and ask questions to everyone that passes by. So we don't really have to conduct opinions about Polypisa or the student center or anything so that. So when it comes to emails or Google form, especially since a lot of these forms have to go through bureaucracy and voting and stuff like that. So maybe the fastest way is literally going to the campus center and asking questions.
Senator DeLuca?
The poll was just another option, just trying to use as many methods or means as possible to reach out to the student. Unfortunately, with stuff, people usually only look for a survey or a way to reply if there's something bad happening. But we also want to hear feedback if something good is happening. That's why they have the suggestions board in the campus center. They're asking everyone to show up and speak. And as I said, it's probably scaring a few people, probably the freshmen mainly, by asking them and reaching out to them. It is an introverted campus to some degree, and they're not prepared for that. So I don't want to drive a few of them crazy, but just trying to see whatever means possible just to get information, because that is what we're looking for. I yield.
Audience?
As a freshman myself, I would just like to add on to the Poly Pizza hours. I know a lot of people would love if they could extend their hours, but I also do understand that there is a shortage of people working. But if that would be possible, I know a lot of people would enjoy that. I yield.
Is there any further discussion for open forum? Seeing no further discussion for open forum, we'll move into swear-ins. President Fish?
Do we have any swear-ins? Oh.
If you're being sworn in, please come into the center of the horseshoe.
Danny, what's up?
Make room for everyone.
There's Cameron, I know. Montana's here. What's up, Brendan?
All right, this is everybody? Perfect. All right, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Will faithfully uphold the student government at Utica Constitution. And carry out the duties of. State your organization and position. To the best of my ability. And will represent the students of SUNY Poly. In a fair and unbiased manner. Congratulations.
Oh, you guys can go back to your seats.
Yeah, you may sit down. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Entertain motion.
Wildcat Media. Do I have a second on adjournment? Senator Pellegrino. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent and adjournment? Seeing no opposition, we are adjourned at 1:42 p.m.